I don't think so. No, we don't get them. God.
Hello everyone and welcome to game number 2 of our 7th Newcomers tournament. Here we have Never Zero, Boat Shoe, SV, Studoku, and I am Blues, casting with Death Tacticus.
Hello.
So, what do you think of this map?
I think this is one of the worst maps I ever seen. But food, reactors, like fuel, everything is high except iron. There's not a lot of water now or everywhere, but there are core samples.
Right, resources in general are very spread out across this map. It's going to be difficult to find in a very desirable way.
You probably want to find scientific on the top and just go into food or something, or go for the nomads southeast, get core samples, get those too high silicon. Maybe that works, who knows. But Sudoku is found in the middle of nowhere. That's not really what you want, but he's getting the high iron. I would rather see him go for the two next to each other, but game is glitched.
A nomadic HQ has been founded.
Tap out and then maybe that helps.
Yeah.
That sometimes helps, at least for me.
I'm not sure if you might mean that the build menu's not open. Yeah, that seems to be their common thing.
Balance, which balance?
What? F1 does turn that menu on and off. I mean...
F1. I'm not using those, so... You can click it? Click on it?
I'm really not sure what's going on there.
An expansive HQ has been upgraded.
Is this a rehouse, or...?
Maybe. Probably. I mean, he's very far behind right now. Anyway, just taking a quick look at what everyone else is doing while this is getting figured out. Never Zero founding us a nomad, getting that silicon access, a pretty good set of resources. He is a bit light on silicon for the long term, but it's probably good enough. Boat Shoe picking up double high iron away from his base and a steel triangle. He still has a claim that he hasn't used. He's picking up some water.
Okay, yeah, you can play. Well, he was a subset plate, like...
Yeah, probably don't want to push it too much.
I don't want to...
Does no one have aluminum? That seems to be the case. SV is the first one to be picking up aluminum, it seems. No, wait, Never Zero
Never
also
Zero
had that, right?
Okay, well,
But neither of the expansives do, which is troubling. And also troubling is Boat Shoe shipping in 6 iron a second from a fair distance, and fuel is shortage. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really unlucky for him.
I mean, it is unlucky, but it's also somewhat predictable that fuel would be very high anyway. Because
not so high.
Even without the shortage, it'd be around 100. And that'd be hard to deal with.
And it's also power colony, so his steps is going to skyrocket really fast.
And food's also already 170. It's going to be problematic. In that sense, SV is in a good position as a robot, except he's shipping in 2 tiles of aluminum now. And with the power colony, that is going to be horrifying.
Sudoku is going for glass, but he doesn't have silicon.
Never Zero doing the very common newer player error of going for a bunch of single buildings. Yeah.
I mean, I don't mind the too high silicon.
No,
but I would rather have him to pounce on the east, on the like where the land is.
I mean, yeah. So you have a little more room to build, but the too high silicon isn't the problem. The single wind turbine, the single reactor, the single electronics is the problem. Again, you need adjacency buildings, adjacency bonuses on these production buildings to make them worth using. Because at this point, you have 3 claims that produce 3 buildings worth of production. If you just use a triangle, you get 5.25 buildings worth of production, something like that. You don't need to be in so many markets at once. I mean, we already see this electronics not profitable, already auto off. Could just have been a second reactor, it would have been excellent. Could have been a second wind turbine, also would have been excellent.
I must say, he's still in the best position, which is kind of weird. But
I mean,
because if he gets this claim from the black market, he can maybe get 2 buildings next to each other.
looks like Bochu did pick up a claim from the black market to buy a geotherm.
Yeah, makes sense.
I mean, it does make sense to go into that power, but I don't know that power is something he should be that worried about right now. I mean, it is pretty cheap to put down with steel being overproduced by him, but just food and fuel debt is going to overwhelm anything he gets out of this power, and he's just delaying his upgrade somewhat by doing all this investment.
What they should do is just transition those to 3 steel mills into reactors. And
Yeah, it'd be very easy for him to do that. He has more than enough steel for his upgrade and the buildings, and it would just make him a ton of money.
He's stealing the aluminum, which kind of makes sense, but kind of not, because he has so much fuel.
Right, and the thing is, SV has been selling down aluminum constantly, so it's okay to let him keep doing that. Aluminum's so cheap that you can just buy it up without any problems. I mean, you can't rely on that, but...
Oh no, SV upgraded just now, and Never Zero also upgraded. Let's see. Okay, Never Zero is going to 2 solar condensers and 1 more reactor. That's going to be really useful because carbon is high, oxygen is high, and the reactor's fuel is high.
Also went into a second wind turbine. All those are good things. Definitely good to see him double up on all those buildings. But again, they could have been doubled up on HQ2. Now he's switching one of the condensers to a farm. This is just losing a lot of claim efficiency. You're not making any money off that farm actually because you're consuming more food than that produces. That does control your debt, and since he is close-ish to power money, that will get him money, but again, with adjacency, you make so much more money.
This claim is going really cheap.
Yeah.
Sudoku
doing good things with his claims. I mean, getting out of the steel made more sense for Bochu, but it wasn't a terrible thing for Sudoku.
It makes sense because everything is high except steel. Supposed to make some money now.
Right. I think I wouldn't be using glass in particular. Reactors seem nicer, but I guess if you're worried about the water price and not having enough water, that might be okay. Long term, this glass triangle isn't sustainable though.
He's going into a battle map. Okay, probably wants to have.
No, Bochu, what are you doing?
Oh, he's already buying into someone. I don't think you want to do that when you go into a battle map. It's better to go into one play, not the.
Right. I mean, he is making plenty of money on food, and Bochu is cheap, but it's not going to pay off. I mean, he's better off just investing in the patents, defending a bit better, waiting until he has a bit more money. Bochu also has a fair bit of money. And what I was saying before about Bochu, this reactor, solar condenser reactor thing.
Yeah, no, you want to have those next to each other. Yeah.
Again, we've harped on it a bunch, but adjacency is just so important.
SV has a lot of life support production, but doesn't have any water, but someone keeps selling it.
Yep.
So that doesn't really matter. He has 4 claims, he needs to use it. Claiming water now.
Yeah, just that one medium water with no possible adjacency, can't core sample next to it either. It's a bit awkward. Also getting this other medium water way up there. He's already very deeply in debt, and he's going to be shipping a completely absurd amount of stuff. He desperately needs teleportation to stay afloat, or some really heavy amount of power through superconductor or something.
Superconductor, yeah.
But
he probably doesn't want this aluminum anymore, just so not.
Yeah, that could also just be wind, that's fine too. But he needs to deal with this because power is already almost $200 and he's consuming 4 a second. He's also auto-paying debt now. And since he's auto-paying debt, we get to see that his aluminum mines are like a net negative $110 on the high and
Hmm.
100-ish on the medium.
Never Zero is already going into upgrades, already has like 3 queues ups, going into
Yeah.
water first, which makes kinda sense.
Yeah, optimizations are definitely great with all these prices so high. And Never Zero is in a solid place to be going after optimizations.
It's going
Upgrades,
4 farms now.
yeah, HQ5 was not particularly usable for him with Silicon so high, so this is a good way to continue investing in yourself while you
I
wait
have
for
a
that to be under
I
control.
have a feeling that no one knows what sample is. Because no one is using it, or they are just overlooking at it.
Yeah, I
don't know.
mean, it's so easy to overlook even for more experienced players. I
Yeah.
wouldn't be surprised either way. Bochu is managing to hang on. His debt never completely overwhelming him, so Studoku hasn't been able to very cheaply get the buy, but he's still a large amount of the way to the buy, which is pretty impressive.
It's mainly because he has all the water.
Yeah,
He keeps selling it. Which he shouldn't do because it's going up and up and up, but... So almost a depth tick, and that will be a problem for Bochu and SV because they are both in C depths.
of course, Studoku now buying into SV as well. That's something the AI does consistently, like just buying into anyone with a very high amount of debt. It's not a good
Never
way to
Zero
go
is
about things, though.
Never Zero is joining in that, and that makes
It makes
kinda
some
sense.
sense, because, right, Never Zero's not going to upgrade. He's not going to build an off-world. Silicon's just way too expensive. So this is an easy way for him to keep investing. But, I mean, he's going to fall behind Studoku at this rate.
I think what Sudoku wanted to do is just delay those 2 players by buying into them, so
I
they
mean,
cannot upgrade.
if
Which
that's-
kinda makes sense.
He should be selling out if it's...
Yeah, he should sell. He should have waited for the depth tick, which he did, but he should sell out now.
Yeah, and he should also keep using this patent lab. There are definitely very good things to be getting with it. Something to deal with power,
machine.
nanotech, thinking machines.
Carbon scrubbing, so you don't need to use solar condensers.
Yeah, just-
Nanotech, because everything is so expensive. Almost everything.
VR.
Slant drilling you don't really need because you have close samples.
Studoku is going to a 4 adjacency pleasure dome, which will be very nice with 2 expansives and a nomad.
Another claim on the auction. And Never Zero should bid on this. He's making power money, but you cannot let this claim go so cheap.
Yikes.
Okay. Well, it doesn't matter for Sudoku because he was going to buy him anyway, probably.
Right. Although, one pretty significant downside to being in all these players' stock, well, we see that
Yeah,
that's a very
nice.
big motivator to attack you constantly, and that's what Bochu's doing.
Those buildings shouldn't be like
Clustered like that?
a cluster, like clumped together. They should be like 3, 3, 3, and then one touching every triangle.
Right.
Have it
I
go in
mean,
the middle.
part of that is just a product that's
Wait.
found. We did criticize earlier that's just kind of in the middle of nowhere. But not only is it in the middle of nowhere, it's also just cramped on one side, so there's no room for a triangle on the north side of his base. You definitely want as much room as possible, except... I mean, it's more important to prioritize resource proximity, but other than that, make sure you leave enough room for your triangles. +1 if you want the advanced buildings attached.
Oh, Sudoku's buying into everyone now. I don't think you want to do that.
Yes. This is not one of those things you should learn from the AIs.
But no.
The reason
Never Zero.
is, I should explain, when you have all this stock invest in other people, that's a lot of money. This is like almost 100k. That's not producing anything for you. There's no income from this until you buy someone out. So you're spreading a lot of money around. When you have a huge lead, that's kind of okay, but you'd be in a better position if you're investing in yourself by building an off-world, for example, or finishing a buy, or any of a
Upgrading.
number of things.
It's going up to Northwood now. Okay.
Yeah,
That's a really expensive one.
it's
but...
a really nice off-world too, though, with oxygen so cheap.
And the black market is really helpful.
Right.
You don't really need a fake machine of that, because if you always have a mutiny stockpiles, it's like whatever.
Right, no one's really going to want to drop a power surge on this to pop the Goon Squad. And that is one thing to definitely look out for in games. When there are no Goon Poppers, off-worlds become that much better. Goon Poppers typically network viruses, circuit overloads. Named Goon Poppers because, well, some amount of the time, network viruses and circuit overloads don't have much use for their primary effect. It's mostly just for getting rid of the Goon Squad.
Don't tell me this is going to go for 8k.
It's going to go for 8k.
Okay, people, you want to bid on this, at least 24k. You're an AAA rating, never bid on it. It's a claim, it's a hacker ray. And Sudoku, you're on A rating, and both show AA, or both show colors.
Right, the key here is that debt is a perfectly fine thing. Just make sure, I mean, the only thing about debt, you need to make sure you're not really dipping into D debt.
D+4?
And if you, as long as you stay around the BC range, I mean around that borderline, you're basically fine. You can bid on those auctions. 20 to 24k for a claim, especially with buildings on it, is definitely going to be fine. You'll find a good use for those, I promise.
Indeed. Sudoku should really go into an optimization center, go into chemicals, make glass, just upgrade stuff. This is like not optimized enough in my opinion. I mean, off-world is nice and you're leading, but still, it could have been so much more.
Yeah, optimization centers, when prices are high, always, always, always. In fact, even when prices aren't super high, they're fine. Optimization centers are just really good. They cover all these holes in your production, they help you make more stuff, they help you cover your off-world shipments more easily. So many things.
Okay. SV, how did he get so much depth? What do you think?
All the
It's
shipping.
Probably all the shipping.
And not enough power.
Not enough.
I mean, he has a
lot
ton of power,
now,
but
but it's too late.
yeah.
Also, he had some nice life support early on, which was really good, but you didn't have any water, which was the biggest mistake. And you also used the core simple like next to the high water next to Sudoku in the northwest.
I mean,
Could have done something about that.
Right, the biggest thing though is really just all the shipping, and he has been auto-paying that for a large part of the game. He's trying to keep that under control, but there's just no way to keep it under control when all of these buildings are burning so much money in debt. You need to pay very close attention to those shipping costs
And
if you're
also
worried about your
cooked the
debt.
books.
Yeah.
So he could have done something about that, but he gets bought out by Sudoku, so...
SV not going to be a very profitable subsidiary, but it is a nice stock price boost. And Sudoku has so much stock in the other players anyway that it's not necessarily a huge problem that they're so far into splitting him.
These auctions.
Yeah, Bochu's definitely been the beneficiary of a lot of cheap auction wins. And that's what's keeping him, I don't want to say in this game because he's still very close to getting bought out by Sudoku, but
It's going to...
it's what kept him
Yeah.
from spiraling out quite as much as SV did.
The only problem with Bochu was early on that he like had a lot of fuel problems, he didn't make any money, couldn't go for the upgrades really fast because he was only making steel and steel was cheap, he still needed this, he didn't have aluminum, so...
Right, just transitioning out of the steel earlier when you're saying would have solved a lot of problems. And maybe he's just not going for the geotherm quite when he did. Going for that extra claim plus that goon squad, plus all the steel for the geotherm, when he could have just upgraded to HQ3 with so many good markets available.
Never Zero didn't use adjacency quite right,
Still.
slowed him down.
Yeah,
Still doing that as like a single black magic tile reactor. It's a problem, you're not gaining anything from this, only like a little bit for your depths, but
right.
it's not optimal.
It could.
But I must say, I liked his early optimization center that he's not using now, but he already upgraded quite a few of them.
Yeah, it was definitely a nice move when it came out. I think part of it was also perhaps a little bit unnecessary. I mean, I was talking about how it was a good idea because silicon was so expensive that there's very little else he could do, but would have been pretty easy for Never Zero to pick up this last high silicon tile that Sudoku now has instead. Like, he is a nomad, he can't afford to take that extra claim for the silicon and then return it later. Just things like that would have helped him along. But the biggest thing definitely was the adjacency issue, and he made a ton of money off of power this game because no one else really produced enough. I mean, it's hard to produce enough when SV is consuming so much more.
Okay, his second offers Sudoku by info research, but it doesn't really matter because Sudoku almost has the money to buy Pocho. Excuse me. And there it is.
And that should be the game.
Yeah. I mean, I see 2 off-worlds.
Two off-worlds for both players then.
I mean, yes, but that's over. Pretty much. Gets 2 extra claims that he can use for solar content, which he's not doing. He's going for class. Oh no, he's just transitioning to class. Okay.
Yeah, that was one thing that was kind of odd to me earlier. Keeping that one single solar condenser online with like 4 reactors next to it. I mean, Sudoku was going to be launching oxygen the whole time, so you need the oxygen production more than the fuel production, and he already had a stockpile of like 400 fuel, so it wasn't like fuel was that profitable, relatively. Just a bit odd. Definitely need to make sure, in general, that you keep a strong amount of production to back up whatever you're launching off-world, because that price is going to rise pretty quickly otherwise.
Yeah, food's really high already. Most of the time you want to optimize the thing you're going to send off.
Right, and even if you're not going for an off-world yourself, it's important to keep in mind what the off-world launch is, because again, that is going to rise quickly. You can do something like just not sell that resource for a long time, anticipating the price rise, and you can do pretty well for yourself off of that. Or you could even just hold on to it in anticipation of getting an off-world up later. You have that stockpile secured, you can just watch from that instead of buying at a very high price.
So he's going into 4 farms now. Playing with Sudoku. That's it.
Other things for this game.
I would have liked to see more cook-to-books and core samples from the black markets.
Yeah.
More upgrades from almost everyone except Never Zero.
More claims, more bribery claims would also have been fine. 20k is a bit low to be ending the game on. One thing for Boat Shoe in particular, that's a lot of claims away from your base with all this water and food. I'm not sure if they were all done by Boat Shoe, maybe some of that was AI, no I don't think so. But in particular the water claims, if you find yourself needing extra water and you already have like 3 water claims down, unless you're getting nuked out heavily, there's just no real reason to go for more than 3 water claims. If you find yourself wanting more than that, you can go for something like slant drilling, you can optimize water.
He did that because water was really high at that moment, like 120, and the rest of the lives was also around 120. I kinda understand why you would do that, but in the long term it doesn't really help you.
It's a really big overreaction that's going to hobble you late. But yeah. Sudoku.
No.
Just
Are we the last one again?
probably.
No, we are not.
Okay.
I was looking at your stream and saw some viewers was like, oh, it's probably watching you now. Okay. Black markets.
Yeah.
Most of the time you can see the winner through black market.
Sudoku,
but
3 claim purchases.
3 claims, yeah, that's big, that's huge.
And the 3 goons. It's
upgrading,
pretty clear that Sudoku was pretty comfortable throughout the game when you see that sort of thing. A lot of goons, a lot of claims.
A lot of nice balance. SP. Oh, carbon scrubbing doesn't need carbon, and he has cell potation.
Yeah, 296k off of that pleasure dome.
Wow.
Definitely a very nice building.
I need a lot of with fuel. A lot of money from class. Was a nice win from him. Only thing I didn't like was... Well, there were two things I didn't like about this play. I was buying into every player, and it's not really needed. It's like wasting your investment, your money. And he didn't go for upgrades. That's the only 2 points I disliked most.
And the found.
Yeah, most of the time you want to farm next to a resource, but I kinda understand why he did it.
I
Well,
mean-
maybe he could have found it next to the high water.
I guess this is fine if it is equidistant between the water and the iron, but if he did end up only taking the one iron claim, and he also took the wrong iron claim, but I guess this does kind of hedge.
And then people also you need to use core symbol and bid on auctions. That was also not a problem. I suppose you got all those free auctions for some reason.
Yeah, that was odd. Sudoku also definitely benefited a lot from SV just chain selling this aluminum. If that hadn't been happening, Sudoku probably is a lot slower through the upgrades, maybe struggles a bit more somehow, but I guess his debt was always under control during that game because he went into the early life support instead of the steel. Made some good moves along that front.
SV had a lot of death problems because he didn't have enough power, but he was making lots of money because of life support, but he didn't have enough water. Also, 2 claims on to aluminum was way too much for him, which why he died a bit.
Right, in general, I don't think you really ever went to remote claims for aluminum, but I mean on Mars, and especially not as robot.
No. Never Zero needs adjacency better early on because that slowed him down quite a while.
Right, concentrate on one or two, like one market at a time. Like make sure you get your pair or triangle of that down before you try to establish into another market. If you're just doing singles throughout, you're not really getting any money from any of the markets.
And Bochu went into 2 iron, 2 water early, only had steel to get his enough money to upgrade and like life support aside. That was his mistake. He should have went into like profit buildings like fuel or food with that water, but
yeah, that's something to keep an eye out in games like these when there's so many prices starting high, food and glass. The steel money was never going to be enough to get him to HQ3 comfortably, so you need to have some sort of plan for making that money. This game it could have been just transitioning out of the steel triangle, could have been sticking to 1 iron, 2 steel, and then having 2 more claims available to make that life support with that water he was pulling in. Just something like that. Anyway, all the other groups are finished, so we should probably
already
move
have
on.
Crypto.
Okay.
Lobby up.